A losing streak that feels terrible. Is Aaron Boone's job in jeopardy? Also, an all-star roster loaded with first-timers, and the case for Paul Skeens to start the all-star game. And the one-upship of the greatest Rookie of the Year race of all time. Reese double-double, so Clark triple-double. Let's say first to quadruple-double wins. Around the horn is next.
10 turnovers to do that.
Yo, Isola, watch yourself.
I was at a game when Jason Kidd did that.
Jason Kidd is going to factor into this conversation because he split a Rookie of the Year many years ago. We'll get to that in a second. The Yankees feebly free-falling over 3 weeks, capped off by a series loss to Boston. The no-hustle plays from this past week, we'll show them here, particularly putrid. 7 straight series without a win in the series. Aaron Boone hinting it feels terrible when he said, quote, "It feels terrible," end quote. Can the Yankees survive this? What changes need to be made? Should Boone be in trouble? Around the horn to New York and Frank Isola.
Well, since mid-June, they have the worst record in baseball, so that's a concern. What's disappointing is last night they got a good performance out of Luis Gil, who struck out 9. He had struck out a total of 9 batters in his last 3 starts. You get a great start out of him until Rafael Devers, who kills the Yankees like David Ortiz, hit 2 home runs last night. They win the game. But you mentioned the hustle plays. Trent Grisham in center field. I mean, that's, Tony, that's on July 4th. That's George Steinbrenner's birthday. You don't lollygag on George Steinbrenner's birthday. Then Anthony Volpe the next night not making it home on a double play. Inexcusable. And those are the things that have happened a lot under Aaron Boone. I know he has the support of ownership in the front office, but it's almost as if the Yankees look at, well, we'll be a playoff team anyway. Wild card, we'll get in. There's never a sense of urgency with this team, and it always comes back to bite them in October.
Marcel Louis-Jacques. Should the Yankees be thinking about a change? Maybe at the manager position.
Look, I think Aaron Boone gets talked about like he's this untouchable force, but Tony, past behavior is an indicator of future behavior more often than not, right? In the past 2 seasons before here, Boone's Yankees teams are 113-78 before the All-Star break, and 68 and 70 and 68, afterward. Like there's a clear drop off. They clearly stop playing. Like they lose their momentum. He's essentially the Cliff Kingsbury of the MLB right now. I think there is cause for concern. This lineup is still too dependent on its top stars in Soto and Judge. I think it's time to start ringing the bell. Hopefully for their sake, for Yankees' sake, they can take this All-Star break to mentally reset. But what they've done in the past does not leave me optimistic for the future.
Tim Calishow, you physically winced when you heard Cliff Kingsbury of the Major League Baseball.
We do not speak disparagingly of Cliff Kingsbury on this program. Let me know when the Cardinals have a better record than 11-6. Now, back to the Yankees. I was concerned about this topic earlier, so I went to one of the games last week, Tony. I went to the game against Cincinnati.
Inside information.
Last Tuesday night. Saw one of those, part of that sweep against the Reds. Yes, everything they say about Boone is right, but this is a 2-man lineup. Other than Soto and Judge, that batting order falls apart. Verdugo hitting cleanup, a slumping Gleyber Torres hitting 5th, and then you get into the Grisham, Rice, pick a catcher portion. I mean, that is just not going to scare anybody. You can pitch around Soto and Judge and let the others try to beat you. They don't have anything in terms of a lineup to compete with Baltimore in the second half. If they stay with Baltimore, it's going to solely be on the basis of their pitching.
And Courtney Cronin, is it time to hit the alarm for the New York Yankees?
I was going to say yes, but the panic meter that my other esteemed panelist colleagues are hitting right now is out of control for a team that is still 5th in Major League Baseball and a half game back of the Dodgers. But this is a microcosm of bigger issues that have plagued the New York Yankees for the last couple of years. To Frank's point, to Marcel's point about this 2-person lineup, they brought in some big bats. So it wasn't all on Aaron Judge and just how far he's able to take this team. Yet this day of infamy that they have, June 15th, they have the worst home run differential in Major League Baseball, and they've given up the most home runs in Major League Baseball in that stretch. If they can't become big bodies expires at the deadline, it's going to become the same song and dance that we've seen the last couple of years from the Yankees, where in the regular season, they're inching towards it. It looks like things are going in the right direction, but ultimately the flaws within this lineup, and particularly within their infield right now, Anthony Volpe's production has dipped mightily in the last 30 games, as much as his effort on that play that you referenced. Things aren't going to be looking good coming
You
September.
hear the term country club atmosphere applied here. Aaron Boone, the eras. Frank, could a change at manager happen here?
And I do think there needs to be a change in attitude. And, you look at that Grisham play. I get it. 162-game season. A manager has to pick his spots when he's going to call out his team. You can't do it after every loss. The message gets lost. But there was a famous play. I know Tim will remember this. Way back when with Reggie Jackson and Billy Martin, when Reggie Jackson went after ball a lot harder than Trent Grisham did, and Billy Martin famously pulled him out of the game. This was in June against the Red Sox. Sometimes you need to go to extreme measure, and I think that game on Thursday, July 4th, if you did that in your company softball team, Tony, they would call you out for lollygagging like that. To let that go, I'm not so sure about that.
Season you're referring to, George Steinbrenner did come down, fire Billy Martin, turned it around. Yankees won that World Series that year. George Steinbrenner ain't walking through that door. We've been horned. We'll move on. All-star roster is a monster. Rasta monster. Let's go. 32 first-time All-Stars. I'm going to wear name tags. Allow myself to introduce myself. You know about Gunnar Henderson and Ellie De La Cruz and Stephen Kwan, Bobby Witt Jr., and Paul Skeens is where I want to start. Here's the super rookie Skeens, 10 starts into his career, 8 weeks of action, but could he be and should he be the NL All-Star starting pitcher? Around the horn at Courtney Cronin.
Absolutely. Torey Lovullo has a very easy decision here, Tony, to start Paul Skeens, 5-0 in 10 starts so far to his career, third in strikeouts, third in ERA, for a league whose all-star game has not been the best against the best in recent years. Can you imagine what that's going to do for viewership, getting to see Paul Skeens go against Aaron Judge? Do not bring him out of the bullpen. Start Paul Skeens. There's so many new faces that we're going to have to get used to when we see the Major League Baseball All-Star game. It'll be good when there is one that we are all getting familiar with in the lead-up time, which is Paul
Tim,
Skeens.
10 starts enough for a rookie to start the All-Star game?
In today's world, yes, it is. Now, some of us remember when Vida Blue took his 17-1 record out there at the All-Star break to start against the National League. This is a little different.
5-0 is a little different.
But it's also the same. It's the guy you want to see. It's the guy who's been the story since he was the first pick coming out of LSU. Also, today's starters, they go one inning. It's very rare they even give him a second inning. So why not bring him out there and let him do what he can.
Frank, you starting the rookie?
Yeah, Vida Blue is not walking through that door. I'm 100% starting Skeens. Remember, 100%. The game is for the fans, and I don't know the viewing, habits of most people. Mine is to watch the player introductions, then you watch the first couple innings. And what do you see the first couple innings? The pitcher you want to see against the top of the batting order. And we've seen it all throughout the years, whether it's Randy Johnson, whether it's Doc Gooden, you want to see Skeens throw to the best of the American League for the first, and maybe he'll dispute Tim into the second inning. How cool would that be?
Okay, so that's 3 saying Skeens should start. Clean sweep. Marcel?
Count it, man. Absolutely start Skeens. He's not just a flash in the pan, and this isn't just, for a ploy to get viewers, a gimmick. He's the first rookie since Dontrelle Willis to make the All-Star game in the same year he makes his debut. Yeah. He's the first player ever in the June draft era to make the All-Star game the following year after he was drafted. He is the real deal even after 10 starts. And it's one thing if the NL starting pitchers had, there was a bunch of, multi-time All-Stars.
Well, Chris Sale is a definite option as well,
but
right?
There's Chris Sale, but everybody else is making their All-Star debut as well, so I don't care if it's his first time. He's the most exciting pitcher in baseball. Go ahead and
4 other times a rookie has started the All-Star game. Anyone want to throw out a name for some bonus points? Just for
Fernando Valenzuela.
Absolutely right, Tim. Another? You have another?
Steven Strasburg.
Hideo Nomo.
Hideo Nomo. Kalisha's on fire. You have the other 2? Oh, he doesn't. The Bird.
Vida Blue.
No, he wasn't. The Bird. Fidrich and Stenhouse. He's a Stenhouse. Dave Stenhouse. Another question. 32 first-time All-Stars. Is that a good thing or maybe not so good thing? Tim, you want to answer that?
I hate to say it. It sounds mean. It's a bad thing for the fans. Yeah, it's great for Ellie De La Cruz and fans of his, the superstars. But 32 of them, that doesn't mean you really even distinguish which guy is in his first outing. You know, how many people want to see, I hate to say the names, but are they dying to see Jeff Hoffman and Tanner Scott pitch for the first time? Those are very good pitchers. Jeff Hoffman's a very good pitcher for the Phillies. He's their 8th inning.
Anyone else, Frank? Good thing or bad thing? So many first-timers.
I think it's too many. I do like that Bobby Witt Jr.'s in there, Ellie De La Cruz one is 32. How did they come up with that number? That many guys have fallen off.
Well, they've expanded the roster through the years, but it is an incredible number of first-timers. It's an influx of a new game. Taking a break, buy or sell next.
Welcome.
The NBA trade from over the weekend, DeMar DeRozan to the Sacramento Kings. And look at this. We got a Sacramento native on the show. We have a Chicago native on the show here. Let's go. Let's talk fit. Buy or sell the Kings getting over the hump with DeRozan around the horn. Marcel Louis-Jacques.
Tony, I'm buying it for 2 reasons, selling it for another. First of all, it's about time. This Kings team finished 3rd in the West in 2022 and then made no notable roster moves to improve on their standing and predictably lost in the play-in tournament. It's big. They needed a 3rd scorer behind De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. Now they've got DeRozan and Fox, who were 1st and 2nd in 4th quarter points in the NBA last season. The one thing I'm scared of, though, the spacing on this team. DeRozan is the last of the old guard mid-range shooters. He doesn't stretch the floor. He's not really an off-ball kind of player. He's ball dominant like Fox and Sabonis. So I'm curious to see where they're going to go there. But it's big for the culture that they can get a star in Sacramento for the first time since Weber.
So 2 buys, 1 sell, which means 1 mute, but I appreciate the answer. Courtney Cronin in Chicago. You just sent DeRozan packing to Sacramento. What do you buy, what do you sell?
I'm buying that we finally know who D Rose is, but unfortunately for Lakers fans, DeMar DeRozan is not going back to his hometown of Los Angeles that we ended up finding out from that cameo in Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us video last week. This doesn't move the needle for me with the Sacramento Kings. They're still 21st in defensive efficiency. They haven't fixed those issues. They're not a player away. They're still in playing territory. To me, this is a much bigger indictment on the Los Angeles Lakers and the state of their offseason, considering that DeMar DeRozan was one of those names that had been linked as a possible second-wave signing, and he ends up going way up north.
Callis show. What do you buy? What do you sell here? This trade.
Tony, the needle for me is jumping all over place in the Western Conference teams behind Dallas, of course. That's the first time I've ever said that on this show, by the way. But Sacramento is a team that finished 3rd just 2 years ago. I mean, when you got players like Fox and Sabonis and you add a player, even if he doesn't seem like a perfect fit, they'll find a way to use him in the half court, and I think they'll be a force.
And Frank, buy or sell the Kings over the hump here with DeRozan?
Yeah, DeMar DeRozan is a terrific player. He's a professional. He's durable, but he's a better fit than Harrison Barnes. I don't know, because if you look, he led all front court players in having the ball in his hands. He has the most touches, and you're going to join a team where they run their offense through Sabonis and with De'Aaron Fox. So that I'm not too sure about.
Buy or sell 2. Angel Reese double-double record. It continues, now at 13 straight. The Sky and the Storm split the weekend, as is meteorologically agreed upon. Caitlin Clark, first rookie triple-double in league history. Fever's win over the Liberty Saturday. So the one-up ship there. Double-double, triple-double. But how about a franchise scoring record? We saw that yesterday as well with the Aces. A'ja Wilson, of course. Tim, what to buy, what to sell?
I got to buy Caitlin Clark, not just the first rookie triple-double, doing it against the New York Liberty, a team that had beat the Fever by 36 twice earlier in the season. Shows the assist total, the growth of that team, and the growth of her game in the professional level.
I'm buying that this Rookie of the Year race kind of feels like the 1998 home run race, where the last player who would have played was the one who was in the lead. And right now, we know that the Fever are just ahead of the Sky in terms of the standings. This will ultimately come down to how those standings play out for the playoffs. But it's neat to see Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese going back and forth every single day. And Wednesday, when they both have winnable games, we might be changing who the lead is.
Hold on a second. Yeah, I want to get to that in a second, because this conversation about the playoffs affecting the Rookie of the Year race is interesting to me. First, we'll go to Marcel on the weekend, and what jumped out at you?
Well, it's got to be Caitlin Clark there. No disrespect to what Angel Reese has been able to accomplish. These double-doubles are hard to come by. But they have lost the fever, have gotten smoked by the Liberty on 3 occasions, especially those 2 almost 40-point wins earlier in the season. I know it's hard to beat the same team 4 times in 1 year, but for Caitlin Clark to be the engine and lead this team to victory this weekend on Saturday, I thought it was a great example of her growth in her rookie season. So no disrespect to Angel, but right now this one goes to Caitlin.
Yeah, it's Caitlin Clark, first rookie to get the triple-double. You know, A'ja Wilson falls under the same category as Nikola Jokic. They kind of get forgotten because we expect them to be dominant, we expect them to be great. So whenever they do anything, it's like, well, ho-hum. It's, you know, that's just the way it is, unfortunately.
Do you think about playoffs when you think about the Rookie of the Year race? I mean, that's a team thing making the playoffs, Frank Isola. We've had some of our friends say whoever makes the playoffs, well, 8 of 12 teams make the playoffs. This guy made the playoffs last year. Does the playoffs factor into your Rookie of the Year race, Frank?
No, well, winning certainly should factor into it, but Victor Wembanyama, look how much the San Antonio Spurs lost, and he was clearly the Rookie of the Year. I would think that the numbers for both of them are going to be off the chart. Who can sustain it longer will end up being the Rookie.
Marcel?
I don't think it matters. I think it's a bonus. Shout out to you if you actually lead your team, but you're usually on these teams because they are bad teams. So I'm not going to expect you to all of a sudden
Both are still losing records. Both currently are in the playoffs as we speak. Again, 8 of 12 teams make the playoffs in the league. WNBA Rookie of the Year has never been a split thing. That's happened twice in the NBA, but never in the WNBA. Maybe it happened this year. Fire Cell 3, Coco Gauff out at Wimbledon. I want to get your take on this. Beaten in straight sets. Her run ends before the second week at the fortnight, but also her frustration with her coach Brad Gilbert was palpable.
4 games to 1. Second set by 1 set to 0.
Tell me something. You guys aren't saying anything. Courtney, what do you buy? What do you sell from Gauff out at Wimbledon?
So I'm buying that something isn't right with Coco Gauff. She was reduced to tears against Iga Swiatek at Roland Garros. She looked panicked and lost when this moment happened. And I know, playing top 20 players has not been her forte throughout this year. She played 11 top 20 players, only 4 wins. But to have these issues with her forehand serve and to be blaming her coach in these moments, this is not the Coco Gauff we've become accustomed to seeing. And I wonder if there's a change on the horizon for who's leading her here.
For years, coaches and advisors had to disguise any kind of signal. They don't now. They can send signals. They can even speak out loud if they want. Brad Gilbert looks like he's hiding in that bucket hat over there, not knowing what to say to her.
Frank Isola, your takeaway from this?
It's a bad look for Coco Gauff. The one thing about individual sports like this, like boxing, you're out there by yourself. There's nothing magic that a coach is going to say that's going to turn the tide. By the way, Taylor Fritz today came back from 2 sets down, beat Zverev in 5. So there are some Americans doing well.
Marcel Louis Shaw.
Hey, I think it's more indicative of Coco's internal frustration. Like Frank said, you're on an island out there by yourself. It's an individual sport. I don't know what she expected from Gilbert in those moments, but it's on her, and she was clearly frustrated.
Ronan, Louis Shaw, thank you for your time today. Kalishaw, Isola, that's our showdown. 2 minutes. Stay in camp, and the headline from Anthony Edwards.
I'm still the number 1 option. Yeah, I mean, y'all might look at it differently. I don't look at it no differently. They got to fit in and play around me. That's how I feel.
Smile on face, but I'm the number 1 option, fit around me. Is that tongue or tongue-in-cheek, Tim? How do you hear that?
I think it's more tongue-in-cheek than he lets on. Having listened to him talk but not do much during the Western Conference Finals against Dallas, he kind of does it with a smile on his face, but you don't have to take him too seriously.
Oh, the Dallas man has heat. And Frank, tongue or tongue-in-cheek?
He's a likable guy, but there's a reason why they brought in LeBron James and Steph Curry and Kevin Durant is because Anthony Edwards, as the number 1 option last summer at the World Cup, didn't exactly come through.
Wow, you got okay. Allow the guy to have some fun. I mean, his personality.
I said with a smile.
Yeah, he said it with a smile.
He doesn't get cable, maybe, or the internet.
We'll move on. Summer League, Bronny's debut. Let's talk about it. 22 minutes, 2 of 9 shooting, 4 points. In that first game, sat out the second game. Frank, grade the debut.
I'm going to give him a D. If it makes him feel better, Victor Wembanyama's debut last year, he got an F. But here's the one thing about Bronny James. The 5 previous guys drafted 55th, none of them had a guaranteed deal. He's got a 3-year guaranteed team option, so he's going to be judged a little bit differently as the 55th overall pick.
I'm going to give him an S for either satisfactory or just short. because that's what he is. And I'm sorry, you know, there were all Pac-12 players who did not get drafted. This is a guy who scored 4 points a game for USC. He got drafted for one reason. He's got a long, long road ahead of him, and I feel sorry that he's going to get all the criticism for it.
Mm-hmm. Tim Kalishaw, 30 seconds of FaceTime. Let's hear it.
Ooh.
Tony, this morning I talked the producers out of doing a story on the Rangers being sellers at the trade deadline. Who is this Kenny Rosenthal? Has anybody heard of him? Haven't seen him or here. He writes whatever he wants. But here's the thing. Having said that, the Rangers are hosting the All-Star game next week. It's supposed to be a big showcase for the world champs. Marcus Semien and reliever Kirby Yates, the only guys to make the team. After they dominated last year, had 4 starters in the All-Star game. This thing of fame and fortune doesn't last long. Arizona, the team they beat, they're coming here with one player, Ketel Marte. It's easy to go from the top to the bottom in this league. In this show.
Well, remember that when you come on the show next after today's win. On a 23.5-hour break. We'll see you tomorrow around